Thank you for joining me on the Southern Report once again. You know, I say this every time, which is I'm about to bring on an amazing guest. And I am about to bring on an amazing guest. What is incredible as well is that there is a big discussion at the moment, which is narco terrorism. There is nothing like being able to go back to the source where someone wrote a book a number of years ago in 1990 about this subject. So I have the privilege now to bring on Rachel Ehrenfeld, and I thank her very much for her time. Rachel, lovely to meet you via the digital medium, and thank you so much for joining me at this particular time, which I feel is profoundly important.
Thank you for having me.
Rachel, you wrote this book in 1990,
Yeah,
um,
decades ago.
decades ago. And in fact, if my maths is correct, aren't we looking at 36 years ago, shockingly?
Yeah.
So it's that amount of time. Now, I want to say
And
something from the off.
we didn't
Sorry.
hear anything. We didn't hear anything about narco terrorism until now, right?
Absolutely, because you and I are talking at this present time where the president of Venezuela, until a few days ago, January the 3rd, he would have called himself president of
No,
Venezuela
no, he was not president. He was illegal.
illegally. Absolutely, he called himself that. He's still saying that in a New York court. So he was then removed from that country, Monduro, a few days ago. And then, as we are speaking on this day, on the 7th of January, a tanker under flying under a Russian flag is being tracked in not far from Iceland, if not boarded, and also another tanker boarded in the Caribbean. So events are unfolding, and I just would like to say to you and draw people's attention to this because this is profoundly important, and some a particular chapter in your book on chapter 5, which is Peru, Bolivia, and the spreading of the empire. And in 1987, and I'm afraid I can't find it easily, but in 1987, I was in Peru, and where you reference your book, where you talk about Sendero Luminoso, I actually have a poster um, representing that here, and I will try and find that. And of course, we are talking about a terrorist group. What you have gone through here in depth is really profound with events focusing now. And if I may, can I just read a few lines before
Please
we
do.
just get into something? Because the home of narco terrorism, this is on page 113. The home of narco terrorism may be Colombia, but its neighbors in South America are hardly immune to its effects. Indeed, the process is a fluid and dynamic one. And for the present, the momentum is on the side of the cocaine traffickers and their guerrilla associates. As a result, far more than Colombian legal and political institutions are in danger. In fact, it is not inconceivable that in another decade, much of South America could be faced with similar and unprecedented problems of corruption and violence. Assuming present trends continue, little or no effective action is carried out. Then maybe politicians in Washington would realize that the threat to the national security of the US had really materialized. How would this affect the United States? Colombia and Peru seem to provide a very good example for that future. And finally, before examining the truly dismal narco terrorist picture in Colombia's neighbor Peru, let us look briefly at two other countries where the record so far has been relatively encouraging, namely, and you wrote this in 1990 in a completely different world, but not Venezuela and Ecuador. I say relatively because the picture could change drastically at any moment. Rachel, is it fair to say that that picture then changed in 1998 with the election of Chavez in Venezuela? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, 1999. It has changed. Of course, it did. And the Colombian terrorist, Maoist, communist, Cuban supervised drug cartels have actually were leaking into Venezuela to for some haven, etc. So Venezuela has been in the business for quite some time, certainly since Chavez came in. And Chavez actually established the Bolivarian revolution, and it was called the Bolivarian Venezuela, the Bolivarian, what is it, Socialist Democratic, the United Socialist Democratic Bolivarian Venezuela, or Venezuelan Bolivarian something. So, yeah, this has been going on for a long time. Of course, we should also mention Brazil and Paraguay and the tri-state region where Hezbollah has been also part of the drug trafficking, narco terrorism network, and Mexico. So yeah, this has been really this really contaminated, and it usually does. But not only that, Hezbollah, which arrived on the scene from Lebanon, and brought actually they had a lot of experience with drug trafficking, and they had also some instructions from the former Soviet Union, and Cuba was instructing the Colombians. So yeah, we can see the communist influence, if you want, there. And when Chavez died in 2013, Maduro took over, the bus driver. And but we shouldn't forget Nicaragua. And Nicaragua was dealing a lot with drug trafficking in order also to fund their revolution. So to me, the fact, and we look at what happened in Afghanistan. To me, the fact that everybody has been so slow, deliberately, I guess, I don't understand why, of recognizing narco terrorism. Why? Well, usually the explanation is that, well, drugs are a law enforcement issue and terrorism is a political issue. So we don't mix it together. Well, you know what? They did. So why don't you? They have. The same drug traffickers are smuggling arms, are smuggling people, are doing everything, are laundering money. So why make differentiations? Why it's artificial differentiation, really? And you should look at them together. So I'm glad that at least narco terrorism, the indictment in narco terrorism had helped actually nab Maduro and his wife, and there will be others, I'm sure, that will be arriving in American prisons.
I want to reference the fact that I've got your book "Evil Money" behind me, to the right of me, and to encourage everyone to. And I will put in the link to that book, and also to the book that you wrote in 2023, the Soros Agenda.
And there is in between the funding evil, how terrorism is financed and how to stop it,
Right.
Which is very clear.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I will put those links there, because within your work, there's an obvious titles to this, and the subject that you have been focusing on for.
And everything I've documented, everything is documented. I didn't make up anything.
No.
So everything is heavily documented and vetted too. So good sources.
Rachel, you've just been talking about Hezbollah and their involvement, of course, the involvement in Lebanon. Can you put a date on, in your opinion, when Hezbollah really began to accelerate drug dealing and their involvement in narco terrorism?
They, I mean, everybody level. The Syrians were involved in drug trafficking big time. The Assad family has been in it for they were controlling it for a long time. Then came Hezbollah in the late 80s, and they got into the business. And the PLO was actually also in Lebanon in the Bekaa Valley because they had to leave Jordan because they wanted to topple the Jordanian king. So they were there too. And so they actually wanted to take control of the drug trade. And so the big Lebanese war, one of them in the early 90s was who will control the drug trade because it's a wonderful source of revenue. So yeah, they've been at it from the get-go. Besides, later on, the Ayatollah Khomeini actually gave a fatwa which said that it's okay to sell drugs, to traffic drugs to the infidels because it can it kills them, it generates money to the jihadists, and it also shows the corruption. It helps to corrupt the targeted society, and this is actually a Soviet doctrine, which they recommended and was included in the Soviet military encyclopedia of how to destabilize a country during so-called peacetime, in between wars, what the Muslims call hudna. So yeah, this is all the links between them. So it's another red-green alliance, if you want. Okay, so they have the same target. So they also traffic through Western Africa a lot, using Spain, using Europe is a big target. Selling drugs to the Gulf countries, there is a lot of money there. Yeah, it's really worldwide.
Rachel, what assessing the Maduro, we totally understand when he had that election and declared himself as the winner. We're fully aware of the opposition leader that I believe is presently Machado, I think is her surname, who is in Spain at the moment.
Actually, the winner of that election was Juan Guaido, who was the opposition leader.
Yep.
But so he didn't get into it. So Chavez took over, and Machado, who got the Nobel Prize, we don't know where she is at the moment. But she had the most. She couldn't run, but she had the most support from, I don't know, most of the people in Venezuela. So.
In your opinion, Rachel, how has what we call the gerrymandering, the fiddling of the results that have gone on in Venezuela since 1998, how is that actually being conducted, in your opinion?
Well, from my understanding, well, there are many ways to skin that cat. But what they have actually perfected in Venezuela seems to be, and there are many, many reports on it, I didn't really delve into it, was developing voting machines. And they actually were selling them to other countries, to many European countries, including to the United States, that you can actually decide what the results will be before the election starts. So you can manipulate the machines. So I'm sure that we will hear much more about it too. So when you have a lot of money, you can assign people to develop whatever instruments you want in order to keep staying in power. And that's what they've done.
I have to say that X is alive with a lot of comments in regard to these voting machines and in regard to the software. And also because those comments are there, because they then refer to the 2020 presidential election.
In the United States.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think, I don't necessarily want to go too far down this road, but because of, it's January the 7th while you were talking. Yesterday was the 5th anniversary of January the 6th, which is another huge subject. Please, there's a book behind me in the American Gulag Chronicles in regard to that and what unfolded there. So
we may find out more about it when Congress gets around to look into it more, because we heard allegations about it here, and people paid fines and people went to prison because of that. And we know we have more information about the tampering and incitement and involvement of all kind of elements in the January 6th so-called demonstrations, wherever it was. So I guess we'll hear more about it, but there are so many things that Congress and the FBI are busy with. So I'm sure it's very important. So I'm sure we'll hear more about it.
Because there is, it seems, the accusations are that there is a link between where you've been practicing how to use certain machines, how to use certain software in Venezuela, and we're not talking out of turn because all that chatter is out there. Sorry, Rachel.
The same companies that help develop those machines were selling them all over the world, so including in the United States.
Yeah.
And one of the things that President Trump is insisting on, rightfully so, is that nobody could vote in the US without an ID. Okay, so you can forge an ID, but it's a little bit more difficult. And in New York, you can just go and vote. You can be anybody from anywhere. So that's insane. Also, in other countries, I wouldn't call them normal, but in most countries in the world, you have one day of election. That's it. And the votes are counted, and you know the results in the morning, if not earlier. In the United States, you have elections that start, I don't know, a month, 2 months. It's incredible. It's really not election. It's kind of it's a sham. So that has to be actually corrected as well.
Because this whole situation that's happened with Monduro, suddenly, as I just said to you, without it sounding repetitive, of course, X, other social medias are suddenly alive with this subject quite rightly.
Yeah.
So it needs to be, as we would say, you know, a paper ballot, and you vote on one day instead of, I think, postal votes personally is like in the UK.
And you don't put it in an envelope that is sealed. You put it in a plastic envelope that can be sealed, so everybody can see what it is. So yeah, there are ways to do it. Even having some hard to remove color on the fingerprints of people who voted would be good, because at least we will know who voted and who didn't. But that's interesting, because the nabbing Maduro had actually opened up a very big Pandora box.
Yes, it has.
Not only on drugs. I think they should pay more attention to the drug trafficking. They don't. So now it's about the election, it's about oil, it's about rare minerals, it's about communism, it's about geopolitical implications, and there are many, to Russia, to China, to Iran, to Cuba, and to other socialist governments in Latin America, like Brazil and Nicaragua. But So the drugs kind of left. It was a good. It was a very good, actually legal cover for arresting him. Otherwise, you cannot go into another country because you don't like the system there, or because they are anti your government or anti your country. So having a legal document with evidence showing that drug trafficking was taking on is interesting. So it will be very important, I think, to really codify narco terrorism very properly in the books.
Rachel, sorry if this seems like a naive question, and you referred to, of course, to Afghanistan, and I assume you mean the poppy fields there. Why are a naive question, but I want to take it in a certain direction. Why has it taken, we'd say, until now that suddenly people are mentioning narco terrorism? Why has it taken this long?
Well, because who wants to get drugs? Drugs is is a criminal issue. In the so-called liberal West, the notion of well, you can take whatever you want. It's your body, so you do what you want. No, because the damage that is caused to society, to the larger society, not only to your family, but to society anywhere because of drug trafficking, because of drug addiction, is in the trillions. Not only it's health, hospitals, medical treatment costs fortunes. The addiction, people don't work, they need their own welfare. People who work have accidents on the way to work and at work. So they cause all kinds of damages wherever they work. You send them to prison. Okay, so having people in prison also costs a lot of money, keeping them there. The costs are tremendous. And social workers, psychologists, weapons, law enforcement. The whole thing costs really, and I over the years, I have written about how much it costs, how many billions it costs to each country. But besides that, it really corrupts society. So it's time really to stop it. And it's not, people say, oh, it's like alcohol. No, it's not like alcohol. And many people drink wine and don't get addicted. The British actually, last time I was there, and it was a while ago, drink more hard liquor. I don't know now because you have so many Muslims, so maybe there is less hard liquor consumption, but I know that there was quite a bit. And so it's not the same, and the effects are different. And even legalizing marijuana was a very big mistake because you give permission to drug use, and through marijuana, fentanyl was mixed in it, and amphetamines were mixed in it, and cocaine was mixed in it. So this kind was the open gate really to other drugs. So I think, yeah, drugs shouldn't be allowed, and trafficking in drugs is a huge business, and it's degrading and weakening society.
Which of course we've seen within America and elsewhere. And as you're referring to America, if we look at under the Biden regime, that's said deliberate, with the amount of illegal immigrants that came over that have escalated, with filmmakers like J.J. Carroll saying it could be 11 million, it could even be up to 50 million coming into the country. All the fentanyl, who is in the country, what China are pushing, etc. But let's
I call this when I actually wrote Narco Terrorism, I said this was really chemical warfare against the United States.
Yes. Yeah. What are what are your comments where people turn around and say, well, this is American imperialism. They shouldn't be doing this in another country. They shouldn't be removing the leader. And of course, you rightly refer to the legal court paperwork from New York. What are your thoughts on that?
But first of all, he's not a leader, and it's not only that the United States did not recognize his taking or staying in power illegally. 50 other countries do not recognize Maduro because he didn't actually win the election. So to begin with, and yeah, being indicted in federal court in New York, having actually several indictments. The last one was on January 4th. Today's the 7th, 3 days ago. Just before Saturday, before the raid, the district court in the federal district court in New York unsealed the latest indictment. So everything is legal, and all those who are yapping about, well, this is the international law, it's nonsense. The legal framework is very solid, and that's it. So
I hear you.
and it's not the U.S. did not go to war in Venezuela. This was a very efficient extraction, actually, operation. And unfortunately, they didn't take a few other people. I guess they don't want to create chaos. So, but it certainly is not a war against Venezuela. And I hope that the plans that they had before going in will actually work.
Right. Because we've seen many Venezuelans who have left the country, up to 8 million, celebrating the fact that celebrating this action. Can we pivot to? You've mentioned Hezbollah. You've talked about Khomeini's fatwa in regard to drugs. Could we then pivot to talking about Hamas's involvement in that area as well?
Hamas has been. We know that the Hamas terrorists have been using Captagon, which has been produced. Actually, the Syrians have been producing it a lot, and so all these terrorists use drugs. It's interesting. The hashish, the name hashish, comes from assassins, and this was used in Syria, actually, growing in the area there, and the assassins who worked for whichever regime was at the time, centuries ago, were high on cannabis, on hashish, when they're going out to war. So they will be more, they will not be so conscious, and they will not be afraid because they will be high. So yeah, drug use is not new, certainly not in the Middle East or I guess anywhere. But the abuse of it has been really received some so-called recognition or acknowledgement, and I think it shouldn't.
Because you and I are talking we're acknowledge the events that are unfolding in Iran at present at this time, as people are taking to the streets.
They don't have water, they don't have electricity, they don't have food, they don't have money. I mean, it's difficult.
The Iranian regime, in a nutshell, have been using all their GDP for one reason and channeling that, and hence making money within the drug trade as well, because the whole idea is to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. That's
they were transferring drugs from Afghanistan.
right.
So yeah, they've been doing it for decades, and the UN was giving them awards on noting how because they said that they are actually curtailing the traffic. So the UN said, "Oh, sure," and gave them, I don't know, praised them for trying to stop drugs from Afghanistan. Nonsense.
Because I suppose the PR has been, we're asking them to grow other crops and to come away from growing the poppies.
But the British, so there was in Afghanistan, there was a NATO force. There were NATO forces. It's not only the Americans who were there. The British forces. So the Americans were in charge of security, and they gave the Brits the duty to look after eradicating the opium fields. So I guess the British have a long experience with with drugs and with opium and heroin, and they actually did nothing. And more and more, the opium fields got bigger and bigger, and really nothing was done. So,
of course, you're referring historically to the Opium Wars, etc., which is another fascinating discussion to have. Why? Sorry if again this just seems a very naive question. What benefit would it be for the British then to then not do anything about a very serious issue in Afghanistan, in your opinion?
The British have been suffering for a long time now from a syndrome from not wanting to rock the boat anywhere. So I don't, so Muslims come into your country, rape, I don't know, tens of thousands of young British girls. Okay, so let's turn the other cheek, or let's look away.
Turn a blind eye to that.
Yeah. So this they've been doing it for a long time.
Well, I don't disagree with you at all on that. Rachel, we've discussed Hamas, we've discussed Hezbollah, we're talking about Iran and the fatwa in that triangle, and of course, there's been this whole discussions. There's been discussions from people where they've talked about Iran giving advice to the Venezuelan government.
Well, they have plans for they were manufacturing drones, special drones in Venezuela, not only for Venezuela. Could have really this going on would have actually threatened the United States big time. And because the Iranian drones apparently are not bad, quite effective, when you have, I don't know, swarms of this coming in, the United States is not really ready to defend themselves with such a warfare yet. And but they were selling them also elsewhere. So one of the things that apparently or reportedly has been eliminated when before the U.S. forces actually nabbed Maduro was blowing the Russian, Chinese air defense missiles, and apparently also the Iranian drone facility. So if that happened, that actually was not a bad thing.
Not at all, because it's who is then supplying. This is all of this information is now it's gaining speed, isn't it? Because when people are being, for argument's sake, as I have commented on elsewhere, when people are talking about India buying oil Russia via the Russian or taking on via the Russian ghost fleet. We're then talking about, as you've said, what Iran are up to, all the crisscrossing that is going on in regard to all of these countries, Russia, China, Iran, then and all the other terrorist groups, then supporting each other. So this is now unfolding, Rachel, before our eyes. Yes,
Yeah, well, not fast enough to my taste.
right.
I would like to know more. Um, I hope the Americans grabbed some documents when they grabbed Maduro too. They were there for what, 2.5 hours, but it's important. But yeah, these resistance. There is an alliance of resistance groups who are enemies of the United States, enemies of Israel, enemies of whatever is left in the Western world that is still democratic and striving to remain real democracies and liberal democracies, Western liberal democracies, and not caving into uh, the Islamization that is Islamization on one hand, and the progressivist leftist movement that the Chinese are supporting.
Yeah. Well, you've already referred to the red-green axis, and there is no doubt about it that over the last since the 7th of October 2023, we have seen this accelerate big time in regard to capital cities and various other cities around the world, hugely over here. Um, Rachel, what are your comments on that other interesting country, Qatar, and also its influences and what is it's up to with the amount of investment it has made into education facilities, universities within America and over here and elsewhere.
Qatar is up to no good. They have more money than sand in Qatar, and they are spending it very efficiently in the West. They really, the West is apparently not very difficult, or clearly not very difficult to corrupt, and not for very much money. I mean, so a few billions here, a few billions there, and they buy, I mean, continents. The European, where are the Europeans now? Qatar didn't only spend money on American universities. Sure, America is the big enchilada. That's what they want. If they take America, then that's it. But they have done a tremendous job in Britain to be received by the king, who greeted the Qatari emir in Arabic. I mean, yeah, I know King Charles really likes the Muslim world, but the British have been really. Are there many big businesses or real estate dwelling that the Qataris don't own in London or elsewhere? They've kind of been buying up everything. And this is only about things that we are reported and we know about. I was surprised to see that the fashion shows for the new year didn't show some versions of kafia everywhere, because many of the designers are actually funded by Qatar as well. It is Britain really politicians, and politicians don't cost much. And the more Muslim migrants, or second generations or even third, there are in any country, the more voters vote their own people in. So they change the system from within as well. And therefore, you have now policemen in different countries who don't actually apply the laws of their countries in European countries because they are Muslim and they don't care. Oh, these are infidels. Okay, so if a brother stabbed somebody or raped somebody, well, okay, so we do nothing. And there are many who are working now in public office. So they are now changing policies, and sometimes it's not changing the policy where you need the new law, but you ignore regulations. So that's how the society is changing, and I understand that England is changing very much. And once upon a time, we had free speech. No more, not in England. And there are many restrictions in other countries as well, which is not good.
Well, absolutely, Rachel, and I back up every single thing you've said, even though no matter how unpopular that then makes me. And 30 to 33 people a day are having the knock on their door in regard to authorities or someone reporting hurty words and saying, no, we don't like what you have then just posted on social media. Also, within our parliament, we then now have 5 members of parliament who have been voted in on the Gaza ticket.
Yeah.
So, which is then we've also had right now, which has exploded again over the last couple of days, and people are doing great work on exposing this, which is the Maccabi Tel Aviv football team, and being banned to come over to as fans to attend the game. And
but the Brits wants also to they fine American companies, American social media companies. They want to silence them too. So, and my personal experience with the British legal system was such that the judge, I was sued by a Saudi, and the judge in the case did not recuse himself, although when he was a solicitor before he became a judge, he worked for the same Saudi that sued me. So my question was, how can it be? Why did I asked people from the British bar, so how can it be that he will not recuse himself and he will not be actually approached about it? And so, oh, no, our judges are beyond reproach. Sure.
Well, I will back you up and say that the 2-tier justice system that people have questioned over here, yes, it in my humble opinion, it's right before our eyes. And if you are of a left-wing collectivist mindset, then you are going to push your agenda. That is what's going on. When you made a reference earlier in regard to voting, and we think of Cloward and Piven and the Frankfurt School and their training there, and also within America pushing forward.
Sure.
I can't remember the policy. A dear friend was talking about that a number of weeks ago. But the fact that you, as you said about voting, you could turn up on the day, register, and vote straight away, and they wouldn't know how long you've been in the country.
And you can vote more than one time. You can vote mail. You can vote from one place. You can vote from another place. I mean, forget it. It's really a shame. But by the way, regarding the British judiciary system, at least, as an American citizen, I refuse to acknowledge the British jurisdiction. Say, well, we fought for our independence in the United States, and no British jurisdiction. So I didn't recognize the jurisdiction. But at any event, things are very bad, and I saw it when I cannot go to Britain, but when I was there last several years ago, it already looked very bad. And I was, it really upset me because I really liked London. I lived for a while in London. And it's unfortunate that the Brits are actually not trying to, I don't know, vote out this government.
Well, I have to say that the election in 2024, nearly 40% of people that were eligible to vote decided not to vote, and which is a headbanging.
You cannot win. You cannot. At least our enemies are using the democratic system in order to take over. So
Well,
at least fight back and go and vote.
Well, Rachel, I couldn't agree with you more, but that's the problem when you have got people that are socialists that believe that are following a Fabian mindset, which it is, created in 1884. This is where we are at, where they've done this by stealth. And Rachel, I want to pivot slightly because it all ties in, and to say to you when David Lammy, our justice minister, inverted commas, he had a photo. There's a photo on social media of him, with his hand behind Alex Soros's back. So I think that just says everything. And
the Soroses didn't finish with Britain. I mean, devaluing the currency wasn't enough. Making so much money. And Alex Soros is who inherited the Open Society Foundations and more than $25 billion from his dad, who is still alive but no longer in public, is a real menace. And the fact that he married Huma Abedin, who is a Muslim sister, kind of doesn't help. And they find everything and anything which is against democracy and everything and anything which is pro communism, progressivism, anti-Americanism, anti-freedom, really.
Yes.
So we have a mayor in New York now who is the woman who he appointed to be in charge of housing, of tenants protection, declared that, they have a different definition for property. Property, as is understood until now, is that it's racist, it's white supremacist, and it's individualistic. And now it should be actually, and they will see to it that it will be communal. So if you have an apartment in New York or a house, then I don't know how they want to so-called nationalize it or take it away. And you'll be, it's like what they did with the Soviet Union at the time. You had 2 rooms, so you can live in one, but we will add a few more people into the other one. So we shall see what will happen here, but they surely will cause a lot of damage.
Yes, and just to say, we're in the last sort of 6-7 minutes of an amazing conversation, Rachel. But when you're referring to that legislation, that means that, say, for argument's sake, you've got a building that you're renting out and you then want to sell it. Does that mean that housing associations or what we call the
city will have to decide first what to do with it.
Right.
That's what they are planning to do. So
has Has this gone through? Is it called COPA? Has this gone through?
I don't know. Problem is also that the different people who are on different committees and city councils are also on the left. Otherwise, these people would have not been able to be elected. So we shall see. I'm sure if 2025 was a good year for the lawyers here, 2026 would be much better.
I note the irony there. I hear you, because I think there is going to be quite a fight
And there's
within.
not
Yeah, and there should be. I have dear friends that live in New York as well. So there is conversations I'm having with them right now, with all that is unfolding, and I'm not sure if this is right. We need to check. But the person who seems to be in charge of housing, then they either their mother either, or maybe they live in a house that's $1.6 million.
the mother of this woman lives in Nashville in a house that is 1.6 cost
Right.
valued at $1.6 million. Although I don't know where in Nashville, because homes in Nashville can be very expensive. But
Yes.
yeah, but so I don't know. Maybe Tennessee doesn't like, or Nashville doesn't like such laws, so they won't have them. But I hope not. But it's usually, who are the people who are pushing socialism, communism? People with money. Mamdani has huge properties in Uganda. His parents are millionaires. Okay, he didn't work. I mean, he didn't have any job before this. He's 34, 35 years old.
Yeah.
Okay. This woman, she's also from a wealthy family. That's always the case. Soros, okay, billionaires. So that's kind of, that's the way it goes.
Rachel, I mean, how? Well, of course, we must remember his record playing, being a DJ, as we're called them over here, and the very questionable words in regard to those songs as well. So, how, even though people were warning about him in regard to New York, how? Just quickly in the last few minutes, what are your opinions on why he was then voted in? How did he manage to pull the wool over people's eyes?
So much money was invested in PR for him.
Right.
And with the left-oriented media here, it wasn't actually too difficult to do. But millions have been invested in promoting him in PR. But even then, only so you said that only a small percentage of people went to vote for the last election in Britain. Here in New York, there are 9 million people, and only about 1 million, maybe a little bit less, voted in the election. So they voted to elect Mandami.
Wow.
So, and I mean, so that's really not reflecting the majority of the people here. So, that's what you get when you don't participate.
Yes. Yes.
So, and really stupidly, the Republicans really were missing in action, or I don't know, deliberately said, oh, if he is elected here, then it will be easier in the midterm election. Or that's stupid. You want to win in every race that there is. So allowing him to win here was a huge mistake.
Yes, I've heard those comments too. I'm rather shocked by. It'd be good to check out all the voting figures. I'm rather shocked how bad it is. But if people just think back and say, no, this isn't going to happen here. And in the last sort of minute, then, Rachel, how is the Jewish community feeling in regard to the fact? I mean, there are other mutual contacts we have in New York,
It
but
depends.
how are they then feeling about this?
Okay, so of the 1 million or so people that voted for Mamdani, the reports are that 30% were Jews. That's huge.
Wow.
There is a left I mean, there is a large contingency. New York has more Jews than any other place in outside Israel, and many of them are lefty.
Yeah.
And when you ask, well, so Democrat, but he didn't portray himself as Democrat. We know that he's actually pro-Hamas, against Israel, wants to globalize the Intifada,
Yeah.
in addition to being lefty. So why did you vote for him? Well, my grandfather voted Democrat, so I'm voting
Yeah.
Democrat too. I mean,
I hear you.
that's silly.
And then,
So but the rest of them, many people are actually, many people have already left. Many people are planning to leave because anti-Semitic attacks are stronger, and he decided he didn't want to. He does not accept. He cancelled actually the definition of anti-Semitism
yes,
that
he
was
did.
accepted. And he said, well, he will protect the Jews in New York, but Israelis will have no protection. So I mean, I guess Hamas terrorists will be probably welcome. And it is very. We have a very good police commissioner, but she can do only so much with the reduced police force that she has. And I mean, going out, he I guess he wants to run against Trump sometimes. I don't know. He is a little bit megalomaniac, shall I say? And he comments on things which have nothing to do with him. It's not his business. On international issues like Maduro, he
Absolutely.
very
Absolutely.
interestingly, Hezbollah's condemnation of the American nabbing of Maduro is very similar. The wording of Mamdani is very similar to that of what Hezbollah had actually published. So yeah, it's interesting. But he's a Shiite. So
Rachel, I just want to thank you so much for your time. And when you're free again, I would love to continue this conversation. And also, I'm just going to play us out, but I will put links to your books below. It would be also very.
Yeah, to the American Center for Democracy.
Absolutely. And we'll put that. We'll do that if you can send me any other links that you wished me to put in. I want to thank you so much for your time. It's been an utter delight. Stay there, and I'll say goodbye to you on the other side. But thank you.
Thank you.